And describe to us what you did in the RPF.
Objection. Move to strike beyond the scope.
RPF was just a 12-hour workday, hard labor during the day, studying or doing confessionals in the evening, 7 days a week.
What type of hard labor?
Anywhere from digging ditches to building movie sets to cleaning up kitchens to doing paint. It had to be manual labor always.
Objection. Move to strike lack of foundation.
Also, so far beyond the scope that it's
And why did you go back to the RPF?
objection is to the form. And it's also asked and answered.
That was something that I struggled with for a long time because I actually didn't have an answer because I felt it was against my will and yet nobody put a hand on me.
Move to strike.
Have you ever figured out why you went back to the RPF?
Please, I'm begging you, Ken. Come on. Object to the form of the question. Have you ever figured out?
He said it took him years to figure it out. I'm asking if you ever
What
figured
does
it out.
have to do with anything? I mean, come on.
Did you ever figure it out?
Objection is in the form.
Yes, I came up what I think was an explanation for it.
And what is that?
Well, some people try to accuse Scientology of mind control, and I've resented that characterization as well as I've resented the characterization of brainwashing, and yet there was some form of control that I would be going back into something that I didn't agree to. And I finally realized whatever it is, it's similar to the abused woman syndrome.
Move to strike.
How so?
Women who escaped abusive situations are talked back into the abusive situation by the man without laying a hand on them. There's some degree of control that can be exerted without your consent.
Okay,
I went back.
No, excuse me, I'm objecting, okay? I really resent this. It is completely and totally impermissible. It is outrageous. It has nothing to do with him being called as an expert. It's scurrilous, and you know that. And why are you wasting our time and having him say abused woman syndrome and all this stuff? Come on!
How long did you stay in the RPF after you went back?
Just a few months.
And then what did you do?
Then I went back to ASI.
You went back to ASI. Who placed you in the RPF originally?
That's sort of.
This is part of our continuing objection as to.
We understand.
RPF,
We understand. So I'm almost done with this. Who placed you in the RPF?
That was sort of debatable because there was who was said was in control of it and who I later found out was in control of it.
Explain that.
I was sent to on the surface I was sent to the RPF on a committee of evidence, which is what is called a particular ethics action within Scientology. Later on I discovered that it was actually basically David Miscavige and Norman Starkey doing it because I was connected to broker.
Move to strike lack of foundation.
Was Norman Starkey and David Miscavige part of ASI at the time you were sent to the RPF?
Norman Starkey was ASI, David Miscavige was RTC, and the RPF was at CSI.
The RPF was operated by CSI?
Yes.
And CSI at that time was a non-profit corporation?
Yes.
And what was RTC?
It's a non-profit corporation.
And what was ASI at that time?
It's a for-profit corporation.
And when you went back to ASI, what was your position?
I was to be an editor.
What did you do that?
For a little while.
What did you edit?
I was supposed to help to edit and create Ron mags, they were called.
Okay, and how long did you have this position?
For a few months.
And then what happened?
Objection is to the form.
And then I refused to follow an order. I was physically beaten and sent back out to Gilman.
Objection, move to strike.
What order did you refuse to follow?
That I was being told to do the Ron mags differently than Hubbard had told me how to do them.
And who physically beat you?
Objection.
Pardon me?
Norman Starkey.
Because you wouldn't follow an order?
Objection is to the form. Ken, does this have anything to do with him being called as an expert witness? Anything?
And you said you went to Gilman
please
Hot
answer our
Springs.
question.
I'm not
Come on.
answering your questions
Why not?
because I'm asking them.
No, you know what? If you were in court right now, you would be out on your rear end. You can't, I mean, what are you doing?
I'm finishing up his experience in
What
Scientology.
you are doing is you are
you preaching to
cluttering
me
and
again?
littering the record with a bunch of nonsense
What
that has nothing to do with him being qualified as an expert if he could ever be.
was the purpose of going to the Gilman Hot Springs?
Objection is to the form.
So, because I wanted to route out and I was to be handled there.
What does route out mean in Scientology?
It means that there's a form that you take that when you want to leave, there's a series of steps to be done, and at the end of this form of completing all the steps, you get to leave.
You just can't walk out when you want to leave?
No.
And did you perform that routing out?
Move to strike.
Did you perform the routing out program?
No.
What happened?
Objection is to the form.
After about a month and a half, I asked what's happening about my routing out, and I was being told I wasn't going to be allowed to, and that's when I escaped.
Objection, move to strike.
You escaped the second time?
Objection is to the form.
Yes.
And how did you do this?
Under the guise of visiting my wife, went into Los Angeles. We threw some clothes in the car and just drove away.
Did you ever go back to any Scientology organization after that?
Not as a staff member, no.
As what?
As I mentioned the other day, just seeing the organization, but never as a staff member, as a Scientologist again.
Okay. And what year and month did you finally disassociate yourself as a member of Scientology?
July '89.
Okay. Now, you've testified in other cases or filed declarations in other cases involving the Church of Scientology or one of its corporations?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Again, I'm doing the best I can. Could you just state it again?
I'll restate it. Have you ever, since leaving Scientology, testified via deposition, live testimony, declaration, or affidavit in cases involving the Church of Scientology?
Yes.
And in those matters and where you testified in any of those manners, what is the reason why you do that?
Objection is to the form.
I was asked to. I was asked my opinion. I never asked. Somebody asked me.